Y hasta ahora, por supuesto, la máxima atención informativa llega con ese encuentro del presidente ruso Vladimir Putin. Se reúne con el ministro de Defensa para hablar el resumen de desempeño de Fuerzas Armadas y establecer objetivos para el año próximo. Vamos con Putin.
And continuing to provide the illegitimate regime in Kiev with weapons and money, sending their mercenaries and military advisors, thus promoting a continued conflict. At the same time, they try to keep their population in fear of a Russian attack. Their tactics are very simple. They push us to the red line. They push us to the boundary, forcing us to respond, and then they start presenting us as a threat, just as they did during the Soviet times. NATO countries are racking up their military expenses. They're deploying their strike troops near our borders. Now there are over 100,000 US troops in Europe, and this is far more than the warranted amount. They're also growing their presence in the Asia-Pacific. The United States is creating new military and political alliances that undermine the established security architecture that had been created over decades. They are also working to deploy long-range systems which have a range of 5,500 kilometers. They are working on the deployment and redeployment of missile systems in Europe and the Asia-Pacific. And we used to have a treaty which regulated these activities, but it has now no longer in force due to the actions of the United States. We have underscored many times that we will not deploy intermediate range missiles until the United States deploy similar weapons in a region of the world. That was essentially a unilateral obligation undertaken by Russia. But if the United States start deploying such weapons, then any and all such voluntary restrictions will be lifted. And considering the situation, we have to take additional measures to ensure our safety and the safety of our allies. And we are doing this in a careful and weighted manner, taking care of the socio-economic development of our country. We are modernizing our armed forces and increasing their capabilities. And for this purpose, we have created the Leningradsky and Moskovsky military districts, and we've increased a number of our armed forces personnel to 1.5 million. The share of state-of-the-art military equipment in nuclear forces is now 95%, and the basic principles governing the use of such weapons have been updated, as outlined in the updated state nuclear deterrence policy. And once again, so that no one accuses us of nuclear saber-rattling, it is a deterrence policy. Along with the nuclear triad, conventional arms are being developed rapidly. Advanced robotic complexes are supplied to our troops, including those using AI technologies. Those include intelligence and strike drones, naval drones, and various multi-purpose vehicles. We need to ensure continued progressive development of our army and navy, and to achieve our goals in the special military operation effectively and efficiently, rising to the challenges that our country is currently facing. And our priorities include maintaining the stability, strategic security, protecting territorial integrity and sovereignty of our country through the development of our strategic nuclear forces. And we will continue this work, creating new systems. At the same time, we must ensure the high combat readiness of non-strategic forces and to carry out regular exercises. We have already mentioned the risks posed by the deployment of missiles by the United States in Europe and Asia-Pacific. We will provide a comprehensive response to these threats. And we must focus especially on the detection of possible launches. And we also must ensure the mass production of similar weapons domestically, including hypersonic systems. The Oreshnik intermediate range strike complex has been a well-noted innovation. We have used it as a response to the Western long-range weapons being deployed in Ukraine. It was used in a non-nuclear form, and we must ensure mass production of these complexes to protect ourselves and our allies. Next, we must integrate the experience gained during the special military operation into training programs and curricula, both in military training centers and at universities. At the same time, we must update and clarify our regulations and governing documents. And one of the things I want to emphasize is that members of the personnel, soldiers and officers and sergeants and everyone who has shown themselves to be highly performant must have the opportunities to build a successful military career. And the experience that we've got must be considered in determining the course of industrial developments as well. The precision systems that are currently used utilize new methods of targeting at the final stage of the trajectory, and this has increased its effectiveness. The protection of onboard equipment of missiles has been improved, and the computing capabilities allowing advanced targeting have also been expanded. And taking this further is an important task for the defense industry complex. Another important thing is establishing communication between active military units and defense industrial enterprises. We have achieved a very short times required to fix shortcomings that are identified in combat conditions, but we must improve this further. And of course, we must continue to do everything we can to accelerate the introduction of new technologies and innovations in the military sphere. Next, in order to reduce decision-making times, we have introduced a system for communications between the various branches of the military based on mobile devices, and it has allowed to reduce decision-making times by a factor of 1.2 to 2. And we need to make sure that there is a unified information system used by intelligence and strike units at both the operative and tactical levels.
We need to enhance the production and manufacturing of robotic complexes of various types and classes. In the early period of the special operation, we faced certain difficulties in this regard because the machines that we had were difficult to operate and they were expensive, and now thousands of unmanned vehicles are being sent to the units. We need to enhance their characteristics further, and we need to train operators of such systems. We need to use programs developed based on the experience of the real hostilities. 7. We need to continue to expand military and military technical cooperation with the allied countries and partners, with those who are willing to work with us. And I'm speaking about the majority of the countries in the world now. Comrades, I have already mentioned the great support for the army and the fleet on behalf of the Russian society. People know what we are fighting for, what we are defending. They help the frontline soldiers and they join them themselves. It is of utmost importance that reflects the state of our society. I will cite a number. Daily, on average, more than 1,000 people every day sign contracts to join the army. People voluntarily go to the front lines, and the social benefits for the soldiers, for their families, must be expanded and developed. It is an essential systemic task of the state. Yes, over the last years, a lot has been done in this regard. More than 55,000 soldiers received housing, and in the next 3 years, we plan to allocate 113 billion rubles to help with the housing acquisition, and we need to update the mortgage system. More than 202,000 of the Russian army soldiers received subsidized mortgages, and we need to continue to build military towns to improve the health care for the armed forces. It should be the priority for all the bodies in the government to help to support the participants of the special military operation. We should care of the families of those who have fallen or were severely wounded during the hostilities. This should be our focus. We need to look into the problems that our comrade in arms or their family have, and we need to help them to resolve their issues. This is a task for the Defense Ministry, for the government of the Russian Federation, for all the leaders, for all the authorities at every level. In conclusion, I would like to thank all the participants of the special military operation for their bravery, and I would like to wish all the personnel of the armed forces, the leadership of the Defense Ministry, every success in their difficult job aimed at protecting sovereignty and national interests of Russia, security of our people. And I'm confident that you will continue to resolve all the tasks you're faced with. Thank you for your attention.
Bueno, pues este es el discurso que acaba de poner sobre la mesa Vladimir Putin, el presidente ruso, en esa reunión con el ministro de Defensa, analizando la situación actual del campo de la